Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're tackling a question that absolutely fascinates me every single time I look at the natural world. Think about it. We spend so much time naming our pets, the animals at the zoo, and even the wild animals we track for conservation efforts. But do they actually know those names? How on earth do animals process the specific verbal labels we give them? And even more incredibly, do certain species actually have unique identifiers that they give to each other out in the wild?
Okay, let's dive right into this, because if you've got a dog or a cat at home, you have probably wondered about this exact thing. Does your pet actually know its name? Like, when you call out to them from across the house, are they understanding that sound as their own personal identity? Or is it just a familiar noise they've learned means, dinner time is coming up?
Well, to answer that, we have to look at how behavioral scientists actually study this stuff. You see, researchers don't rely on our warm, fuzzy feelings or those fun little anecdotes we share about our pets. Instead, they demand strict, undeniable proof. They measure animal recognition through very specific physical cues. We're talking about a subtle twitch of an ear, a slight head movement, or physically orienting themselves directly toward the sound source. This is how we establish real, verifiable recognition without making any subjective assumptions about what's actually going on inside their heads.
So let's start closest to home with Section 1, Household Companions, looking specifically at dogs and cats. Because dogs have lived right alongside humans for thousands of years, they've evolved this absolutely exceptional sensitivity to human communication. For a dog, a personal name is basically learned as a specific sound pattern that reliably predicts something is about to happen. Maybe it's attention, a command, or a tasty reward. But their capacity for learning verbal labels goes way beyond just their own names. Studies have actually shown that some specially trained dogs have vocabularies of literally hundreds of words. They can easily retrieve very specific toys when given the right verbal label. It's a crystal clear demonstration of associating a sound with a distinct meaning. Now, what about cats? For a long time, people kind of just assumed cats were less responsive to human speech. But feline research has moved remarkably fast lately. Back in 2019, a Sophia University study in Japan carefully measured those subtle physical responses we just talked about, proving that cats absolutely do distinguish their own names from similar-sounding words. And then just a few years later, in 2022, scientists found that cats living in multi-cat households can actually link a companion cat's name to its specific face. And this brilliantly illustrates the key takeaway here. Recognizing a name is totally different from being willing to respond to it. Your cat knows exactly who you're talking to, even if they completely ignore you and stay on the sofa.
All right, let's step out of the living room and into the wild for Section 2, Wild Identifiers, Dolphins, and Parrots.
These are species that don't just recognize the labels humans give them. They actively invent their own identifiers out in nature. And it brings us to a truly awe-inspiring phenomenon. Bottlenose dolphins produce what are called signature whistles. These are unique vocalizations that function strictly as individual acoustic identifiers. It is absolutely incredible. Researchers have found that dolphins recognize these specific whistles even after long periods of separation. Essentially, they're addressing each other by name within their social groups.
Parrots give us another totally fascinating example here. They actually modify and imitate sounds to create distinct vocal labels. Many parrot species are capable of lifelong vocal learning. This means companion parrots can associate specific sounds with specific individuals and objects, using these vocal labels for really complex social communication. So they aren't just blindly mimicking us, they are functionally using sounds to interact with their world.
Moving right along, we have Section 3, the primate symbolic system, focusing on chimpanzees, bonobos, and gorillas.
As highly intelligent social animals, great apes have an impressively deep cognitive capacity. They have this amazing ability to bridge the gap between abstract symbols and tangible reality. Through decades of scientific studies, individuals from these species have learned to use visual symbols and show a profound understanding of spoken labels. Some apes have mastered hundreds of different symbols that represent objects, actions, and even specific people. It really just demonstrates their profound ability to connect a precise signal with a precise meaning.
And now we arrive at Section 4, the elephant naming breakthrough, diving into a massive 2024 study on African savanna elephants.
This is kind of the climax of our evolutionary journey today. In this monumental 2024 breakthrough, researchers applied machine learning techniques to decode the extremely complex calls of African savanna elephants. The bioacoustic data collected from these massive animals is just so deep and intricate. Human ears and traditional analysis simply couldn't crack the code alone. Scientists actually needed the immense processing power of advanced artificial intelligence just to sift through these low-frequency rumbles. And they weren't just looking at a handful of calls. Imagine having to analyze thousands of hours of elephant vocalizations. By running this staggeringly large dataset through machine learning algorithms, a pattern finally emerged. The analysis revealed that certain calls were not just, general announcements to the herd. They were actually directed specifically toward individual elephants. So, the crucial point is this. Playback experiments completely confirmed the data. When scientists played these specific calls back to the elephants, the animals responded significantly more strongly to the calls that were intended specifically for them. This means elephants appear to possess a true system of individual vocal labels. They are literally calling each other by name. No way, right?
Let's wrap things up with our final section, recognition versus true language, and really examine the science of sound.
Look, while these discoveries about elephants and dolphins are absolutely breathtaking, we do need to bring the narrative back to strict scientific methodology and understand the boundaries of what this all actually means. And that starts with understanding anthropomorphism. That's the attribution of human thoughts and motivations to animals. It's so easy for us to do, isn't it? But as scientists, we have to gently bust that myth. We can't just project our own human subjectivity onto animals. This is exactly why researchers rely purely on measurable behavioral data, so they avoid jumping to emotional, unproven conclusions.
There is a very clear, very fascinating line between name recognition and true language. Now, what's really interesting about this concept is how it fundamentally separates the two. When animals recognize a name, it's typically through repeated association, right? A sound consistently predicts food or attention or social interaction. True language, on the other hand, requires understanding complex grammar and linguistic rules. So while animals can brilliantly associate sounds with meaning, it is fundamentally different from the grammatical syntax of actual human language.
Yet, honestly, even without human grammar, just look at this incredible evolutionary spread. We have dogs and cats responding to human labels, we've got dolphins using signature whistles, parrots creating their own vocal labels, great apes mastering symbols, and African elephants utilizing name-like calls. This incredible ability to associate a specific signal with a specific individual has evolved entirely independently across completely different branches of the animal kingdom.
Which leaves us with one final, thrilling thought. What other animal communication systems might just be hiding in plain sight, waiting for the right technology to finally decode them? With these rapid advances in bioacoustics and machine learning, we are standing on the very edge of a new frontier in understanding social cognition. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep wondering, keep observing, and I'll catch you next time as we continue to unpack the fascinating world around us.